You are about to book a cruise, or maybe you already have one on the calendar. And right now, hidden inside 12 brand new 2026 rules, there is a set of policies specifically targeting passengers over 65 that the cruise lines are not advertising in any brochure. A former cruise director with over 19 years aboard the world's largest ships sat down and held nothing back. One of these rules can deny you boarding without giving you a single dollar back. Another can quietly add hundreds to a fare you thought was already paid. And a third one, number 6 on this list, is already catching seniors off guard at the terminal before they even touch the gangway. Stay with me through all 12. If you are planning any cruise in 2026, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because this channel covers exactly the information that cruise lines hope you never find. New rules, hidden fees, and insider moves are posted every week, and missing even one video could cost you real money. Now let's get into it. Rule 1. Stricter carry-on screening for prescription medications and medical devices. Starting in January 2026, every major cruise line operating from a United States port has tightened its carry-on screening protocol for prescription medications and personal medical devices. And the change is hitting seniors over 65 harder than any other group. Before 2026, a pill organizer and a doctor's note got you through embarkation with almost no delay. That era is over. Security personnel are now required to cross-reference every prescription medication against a digital manifest tied to your booking profile, and if your medication list was not uploaded during the pre-registration phase, your bags go to secondary screening. A 68-year-old woman from Columbus, Ohio, carried 11 prescription bottles onto the ship she had sailed 3 times before. In 2026, she spent 47 minutes in secondary screening because her pharmacy had changed 2 of her label formats, and the names did not match the uploaded list precisely. Here is your action plan. At least 30 days before your sailing date, log into your cruise line's online portal and upload a complete physician-signed medication list with exact drug names, dosages, and the prescribing doctor's contact information. Bring every medication in its original pharmacy bottle. If you use a CPAP machine, a portable oxygen concentrator, a blood pressure monitor, or any implanted device, register it as a medical device in the same portal under the accessibility section. Do not pack medical devices in checked luggage on embarkation day. Carry them on your person or in your carry-on bag so that screening agents can verify them in real time. The magic phrase if you are pulled into secondary screening is this: I have a pre-registered medical device accommodation on file under my booking number, and I would like to speak with the accessibility coordinator immediately. Those words move you to a different lane. Rule 2. The fitness to travel clause that can deny boarding without a refund. This is the rule that is generating the most complaints among senior travelers heading into 2026, and it deserves every second of your attention. Buried inside the updated passenger contracts of at least 7 major cruise lines is a clause that grants the ship's medical officer the authority to deny boarding to any passenger they assess as medically unfit to travel safely, and that denial comes with no guaranteed refund unless you purchased a very specific type of travel protection. The clause has always technically existed, but it was rarely enforced. In 2026, it is being enforced. A 71-year-old man from Boca Raton arrived at Port Everglades for a 14-night Caribbean sailing. He had recovered from a minor cardiac procedure 6 weeks earlier and had a letter from his cardiologist clearing him for travel. The ship's officer reviewed the letter, asked 3 follow-up questions about his current medication regimen, and then declined to allow him aboard. He lost $4,200 in non-refundable cruise fare because his travel insurance policy excluded pre-existing cardiac conditions unless a waiver had been purchased within 14 days of the initial deposit. Here is what you need to do before your next sailing. First, get a signed fitness to travel letter from your primary care physician no more than 30 days before embarkation, even if the cruise line does not ask for one. Second, call your travel insurance provider and ask specifically whether your policy includes a pre-existing condition waiver, and if not, purchase one immediately if you are still inside the look-back window. Third, review the fitness to travel language in your passenger contract. which you can request in writing from the cruise line's guest services team. Understanding exactly what conditions trigger that clause puts you in a position to respond rather than react. Rule 3. Higher port taxes and government fees quietly added to cruise fares. Every cruise fare you see advertised carries a line in the fine print that reads something like, "Port taxes and government fees subject to change." In 2026, those fees changed significantly. 6 of the most popular Caribbean and Alaskan cruise ports have raised their per-passenger port levies, and those increases are being passed directly to you in the form of adjusted final invoices sent out between 60 and 90 days before sailing. The average increase for a 7-night Caribbean itinerary is between $80 and $140 per person. For a couple, that is potentially $280 appearing on a bill you thought was already settled. A 65-year-old retired schoolteacher from Phoenix booked a Royal Caribbean sailing in October 2025 and received a revised invoice in January 2026, showing an additional $112 per person in adjusted port fees. She had already purchased her flights based on the original budget. Here is what you do. When you receive your final invoice, do not assume it matches your original booking confirmation. Compare every line item. If the port fee adjustment feels excessive, call the cruise line and ask for an itemized breakdown of which port levied which fee. You cannot reverse a government fee, but knowing exactly what you owe and why prevents the shock of a surprise charge hitting your credit card close to departure. If any of these rules are already applying to a cruise you have booked, drop a comment below right now with the word "booked" and let us know which line you are sailing. This community shares real experiences that help every senior traveler plan smarter, and those comments are something the cruise lines will never give you. Rule 4. Mandatory pre-registration for wheelchairs and mobility scooters. If you use a wheelchair, a rollator, or a mobility scooter, the window to register that device has changed dramatically in 2026. Previously, most cruise lines asked for a 30-day advance notice. The new policy across the industry's 3 largest carriers requires registration no later than 60 days before departure, and failure to register on time can result in your scooter being denied access to specific ship zones, or worse, being told on embarkation day that no accessible storage allocation is available in your assigned cabin category. A 74-year-old woman from Savannah, Georgia, registered her mobility scooter 45 days before her sailing instead of 60. And when she boarded, she was told that the accessible cabin storage for her deck had already been allocated to passengers who had registered earlier. She spent 3 days negotiating a solution that should have been automatic. Here is your action plan. The moment you book any cruise, log into the cruise line's accessibility services portal the same day and complete the mobility device registration form. Do not wait for a reminder email. Get written confirmation of your registration, including the name of the accessibility coordinator who processed it, and save that email. If you are traveling with a companion who does not use a mobility device, book a cabin that is classified as accessible from the start. Retreating your reservation closer to departure costs more and guarantees less. Rule 5. The 48-hour online check-in deadline that can ruin your embarkation. Online check-in has been a cruise industry standard for years. But in 2026, several major lines have moved the deadline from 24 hours before embarkation to 48 hours, and passengers who miss that window face real consequences on departure day. Missing the 48-hour online check-in deadline means your boarding pass is not pre-generated, your luggage tags must be printed at the terminal, and you are placed in a manual processing line that, during peak embarkation days in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Seattle, can run 45 to 90 minutes longer than the digital line. A 67-year-old couple from Austin, Texas, arrived at their port on time but had not completed online check-in because they assumed the deadline was the night before. They stood in a manual processing line for 1 hour and 22 minutes and nearly missed the departure of an included shore excursion they had already paid for. Here is what you need to do. Set a calendar reminder the moment you book your cruise. Mark the date that falls exactly 48 hours before your scheduled embarkation time, not your sailing date, your embarkation time. Complete check-in on that date. Upload your passport photo, select your muster station acknowledgement, and download your boarding pass to your phone. Print a paper backup. If you are traveling internationally and your phone may not have reliable data at the terminal, that printed backup is your insurance policy. Rule 6. New emergency contact and digital health information requirements. This is the rule that is already catching seniors off guard at the terminal, and it is one that nobody warned you about because it was rolled out through a quiet policy update buried inside a routine terms of service email. Starting in 2026, cruise lines are requiring all passengers, and this requirement is being enforced more strictly for passengers over 65, to provide a digital health information profile as part of the boarding documentation. This profile includes your emergency contact's full name, relationship, phone number, and their ability to make medical decisions on your behalf. It also includes a field for known allergies, chronic conditions relevant to emergency care, and your preferred hospital in your home city. If this profile is incomplete at the terminal, you will not be turned away, but you will be pulled into an administrative lane and required to complete it on a tablet before receiving your ship card. That process takes between 20 and 40 minutes depending on the port, and it happens after you have already stood in the main check-in line. A 70-year-old man from Denver completed his online check-in perfectly, but skipped the health profile section because he thought it was optional. He lost 35 minutes at the terminal and boarded the ship after the welcome lunch had ended. Here is what you do. Treat the digital health profile as a required field, not a suggested one. Complete it at least 72 hours before embarkation. If you are not comfortable entering medical information online, call the cruise line's Accessibility Services line and ask a representative to enter it on your behalf with you on the phone. That option exists, and they are required to offer it. Rule 7. Hidden solo traveler fees that can nearly double your cruise fare. Solo travelers over 65 are one of the fastest growing segments in the cruise industry, and in 2026, the cruise lines know it, and they are pricing accordingly. The single supplement fee, which is the surcharge applied to solo travelers occupying a cabin designed for 2 passengers, has increased across nearly every major line. In 2026, the average single supplement sits between 75% and 100% of the double occupancy fare. That means a cabin listed at $1,800 per person for a couple costs a solo traveler between $3,150 and $3,600 for the exact same room. A 69-year-old widow from Raleigh, North Carolina, booked what she thought was a reasonable 7-night sailing and discovered at checkout that her solo supplement pushed her total fare from $2,200 to $4,100. She had not read the supplement disclosure in the booking flow because it appeared on a screen she had to scroll past to reach the payment button. Here is your action plan. Before you book any cruise as a solo traveler, search specifically for sailings that advertise guaranteed solo cabins or studio cabins with no supplement. Norwegian Cruise Line and a handful of other carriers have built studio cabin categories designed for solo occupancy at single rates. If you book a standard cabin solo, call the cruise line directly and ask whether any no supplement promotions are currently running for your sailing. Those promotions exist, they are not always advertised, and a single phone call can save you over $1,000. Rule 8. Cabin safety inspections that can lead to confiscated personal appliances. This is one that surprises nearly every passenger the first time it happens to them. Cruise lines have always maintained lists of prohibited items, but in 2026, the enforcement mechanism has changed. Cabin stewards are now required to conduct a brief safety inspection of every cabin within the first 24 hours of boarding, and during that inspection, they are instructed to flag and confiscate any personal appliance that draws power and does not appear on an approved device list. The items most commonly confiscated from seniors over 65 include personal electric kettles, travel-size heating pads, certain models of hair straighteners rated above a specific wattage, multi-plug power strips without surge protection, and extension cords. A 66-year-old woman from Minneapolis had a heating pad confiscated on day 1 of her 14-night sailing. She used it every night for lower back pain and had no idea it was on the prohibited list. The ship's medical center offered her a rental heating pad for $18 per day. Here is what you do before you pack. Download the prohibited items list directly from your cruise line's website on the date closest to your sailing, because that list is updated more frequently than most passengers realize. If you rely on a specific appliance for a medical reason, document it in your pre-registration accessibility profile and get written authorization before you board. A physician's letter explaining the medical necessity of a personal heating device, for example, creates a paper trail that gives you grounds to appeal a confiscation decision. Rule 9. Why seniors over 65 need different travel insurance in 2026. Standard travel insurance policies are not built for the risk profile of a passenger over 65, and in 2026, the gap between what those policies cover and what can actually go wrong has widened enough to be genuinely dangerous. The average standard travel insurance policy caps emergency medical evacuation coverage between $10,000 and $25,000. A maritime helicopter evacuation from open water to a hospital on land costs between $30,000 and $100,000 depending on distance. The gap is yours to cover. Beyond evacuation, standard policies frequently exclude any condition that existed before you purchased the policy unless a pre-existing condition waiver was purchased within a specific window of your initial deposit, often 14 days. A 73-year-old retired firefighter from Pittsburgh had a severe asthma attack on day 3 of an Alaskan cruise and was airlifted to a hospital in Juneau. His bill was $62,000. His standard travel insurance covered $18,000. He paid $44,000 out of pocket because he had not upgraded to a senior-specific maritime evacuation policy. Here is your action plan. Before any cruise in 2026, purchase a dedicated medical evacuation policy from a company specializing in maritime coverage. Look for policies that cover evacuation with no geographic sublimits and no per-incident cap below $100,000. Ask your provider specifically, does this policy cover maritime helicopter evacuation without a distance or cost sublimit? If they cannot answer that question clearly, find a different provider. Rule 10. Reduced flexibility for last-minute booking changes and name corrections. Cruise lines have tightened their name correction and booking modification policies significantly in 2026, and the passengers being hit hardest are those who book far in advance, which tends to be seniors planning carefully for a trip that matters. Under the new policies, name corrections that were once handled for free up to 72 hours before sailing now carry a processing fee of between $75 and $150 per correction on most major lines. If a name on your booking does not match the name on your passport exactly, including middle names, suffixes, and hyphenated surnames, you are responsible for the correction fee regardless of whether the discrepancy was caused by a booking agent's input error. A 68-year-old retired nurse from Atlanta booked a cruise and had her last name entered without the hyphen she has used for 30 years. The cruise line charged her $100 to correct a single punctuation mark. Beyond name corrections, the window for free itinerary changes has shrunk from 90 days before departure to 120 days on several lines, meaning that if you need to shift your sailing date or cabin category after final payment, you are now working against a stricter and more expensive timeline. Here is what you do the same day you receive your booking confirmation. Read every name on every passenger's booking against every passport in your group. Check for hyphenation, suffixes, and middle names. Call immediately if anything does not match, because within the first few days of booking, corrections are still free on most lines. Rule 11. The 6-month passport validity rule cruise lines are finally enforcing. This rule has existed in international travel law for decades, but cruise lines operating closed-loop itineraries from United States ports, meaning sailings that depart and return to the same U.S. port, have historically not enforced it. In 2026, that grace period is ending. Multiple lines are now requiring that every passenger's passport be valid for at least 6 months beyond the final date of the sailing, not just the departure date. If your passport expires 5 months after your cruise ends, you may be denied boarding even if it is technically valid on the day you sail. A 65-year-old man from Houston arrived at Galveston with a passport expiring 4 months after the end of his cruise. He had sailed the same line twice before with a passport in similar condition and had never been questioned. In 2026, he was turned away and lost his fare because his travel insurance did not cover documentation-related denial of boarding. Here is your action plan. Check your passport right now. If it expires within 12 months, renew it before you book any cruise. The U.S. passport renewal process currently takes 6 to 10 weeks for standard service and 2 to 3 weeks for expedited service, and those timelines can shift. Do not wait until 60 days before you're sailing to check. If your passport is expiring and you have a cruise already booked, contact the cruise line's guest services team and ask specifically whether your passport validity meets their current 2026 enforcement policy for your itinerary's destination ports. Before we get to the last rule, if you have made it this far into this video, you are the kind of traveler who takes this seriously, and that is exactly the person this channel exists for. Hit subscribe right now if you have not already, because next week we are covering the new 2026 medical documentation rules that could get your prescription medications confiscated at foreign ports, and that is a video you cannot afford to miss. Now, number 12, Rule 12. New facial recognition and digital ID verification at cruise terminals. The final rule on this list is the one that creates the most friction for seniors over 65, and it is rolling out across every major United States cruise terminal throughout 2026. Facial recognition technology paired with digital ID verification is now the primary boarding method at terminals in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Port Canaveral, Seattle, and New York. The system works by matching a live facial scan taken at the terminal to the passport photo uploaded during your online check-in. If the match confidence falls below a threshold set by the port authority, you are flagged for manual verification, which means a human agent reviews your physical documents. The system struggles with passengers whose appearance has changed significantly since their passport photo was taken, those who have gained or lost weight, those who have grown or removed facial hair, and those whose passport photo is more than 5 years old. A 69-year-old woman from St. Louis had her passport photo taken 8 years ago before she lost 60 pounds following a health scare. The facial recognition system at Port Everglades flagged her as a non-match on 3 successive attempts. A human agent cleared her after 11 minutes, but by then her group had boarded without her, and she spent the first hour of the cruise navigating the ship alone and distressed. Here is what you do. Renew your passport before your next cruise if your current photo is more than 5 years old or no longer looks like you. When you upload your passport photo during online check-in, make sure the image is clear, well-lit, and taken straight on. Some cruise lines now allow you to submit a supplemental photo taken within the past 6 months, alongside your passport photo to improve match confidence. Check your cruise line's check-in portal for that option, and when you arrive at the terminal, remove hats, glasses, and heavy scarves before approaching the facial recognition kiosk, because accessories reduce match accuracy significantly. If you are flagged and sent to manual verification, stay calm, present your physical passport immediately, and ask specifically to speak with the port's accessibility liaison if the delay is causing you distress. That role exists at every major terminal, and their job is to resolve exactly this kind of situation. 12 rules. Every single one of them is already in effect or rolling out before the end of 2026, and every single one of them disproportionately affects passengers over 65 who planned carefully, saved their money, and deserve a cruise that goes exactly the way they imagined it. The passengers who get caught by these rules are not careless people. They are experienced travelers who did not know the rulebook had been rewritten. Now you know. Share this video with every person you know who has a cruise on the calendar, because this information is not in any brochure, and the cruise lines are counting on you not finding it before you board. There are more rules, more fees, and more insider moves coming on this channel every single week. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and we will see you in the next one.